What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Humble Hustle Project. I'm one of your hosts, Jake Karlahi. As always, I'm joined with my brothers, Brett Pollock and Devin Jackson, here to rock another week, another episode, talking about some cool topics. We had some pretty cool reads this week assigned by Devin. But we're gonna get kind of right into it, do some check-ins, and then talk about this week's topic of, you can't hurt me, and you'll figure out why. So yeah, man, what's going on, y'all? How we doing this week? Actually, I know we've been on a week hiatus, basically, so people are gonna be checking back in, seeing what's going on, what's new in the world. We've been trying to get some planning done, but how we doing, fellas?
Doing good, man. Kind of bummed that we missed last week, but we're gonna get recentered here. Excited to talk about this topic, but doing good. It's been a pretty good week. Had a good weekend and outdoors, did a little camping. So that was cool to kind of get away from everything. But overall, doing pretty well.
Yeah, man. I did a little trip up to the old alma mater and visited some buddies. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna be doing that anytime soon again because the ventures and then the partying that we got into. I don't know if I'll be able. Dude, I can't do that kind of stuff anymore. I don't want to get into details on it, but man, I was hurting on my week back. But it was cool, man.
You really go that hard?
Yeah, it was bad, dude. I was struggling to make it through the night by the end of it, but it was cool. It was interesting, man, because the town that my school's in, right, or that our school's in, Devin, it's such a different pace, man. It's such dude. It's not even. I go up there and I'm like, life stops once you leave LA. At least above it a little bit when you start getting into these big old ranch style homes or just like this beach life or this. I don't know. It just I went up there and I know people have lifestyles up there. People out there working, creating families for themselves, and really getting out there, their own grind out there. But I went up there and I just felt like the pace of life just. And
bro, life slows down. It's people up there are either retired or they're in college, and when you live on the beach and that's your surrounding, it's just like everything is chill. It's like, oh man, no worries. It's almost like you live.
But part of it might be just because we're like visiting, and they're maybe not the biggest fan of out of towners, So, anyways, we digress. Devin, how are you doing, man?
I'm getting my ass kicked, man. I got COVID this past week. I actually, you know what? The one thing that I'm bummed about is that I missed a good friend's 30th birthday celebration because of that. Other than that, I think I was set to be traveling for the next couple of weeks, but it put a halt on all my plans. And if anything, it's just kind of brought back to the forefront what really matters. I've been like going through what it feels like to not be able to leave the house, not work out, not really have any outside interactions, and even kind of segueing into the book we kind of read this week. It's been interesting for my mentality to be so challenged. The book we read was Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, who is a master of mindset, at the very least. And
somebody we would love to have on this podcast one day.
I'm just please join. Come on, David Goggins. Please call. Yes.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, man, it's been an interesting week. We're very reflective and still dealing with the effects of COVID, but I'm here. I'm happy. I'm very grateful.
Yeah, y'all. This is kind of crazy, man. Right? Like you literally have what has shut down most of the country, and it's interesting. I've had it. Brad, I don't know if you had it, but
nope.
Don't get it, bro.
I would say.
Yeah, I had people around me get it. I know several people that had it. My roommate had it, but yeah, it missed me, and I'm blessed for that.
Yeah, man. So I mean, we wish you the best in getting better, um, and that you're rocking with us. It's almost
Right.
ideal that we're in a virtual setting with
Yeah.
our podcast because we don't have to be in person with each other, um, and you get some social interaction, man, whether it may be virtual or not. So, but yeah, let's hop into this book this week because talk about a mental, being on having COVID, you got to be kind of locked down a little bit, distance yourself and make sure you're not doing anything wild. But you also, overall during the pandemic, people have been in home more. People have not been going out more. And I think a huge thing that's been a byproduct of this current climate that we're in is, that mental. And that's something that this book, dove right at from the jump. And so again, the book was, David Goggins is you can't hurt me, right?
Yeah.
And I think we all listen to it through audiobook, which I think is actually the more ideal experience rather than reading it, because on the audiobook, they offer you the ability. Well, it's basically an extended cut. So after each chapter, David Goggins and the guy he wrote the book with provide takes on each chapter and what that meant to him right in that moment. So it's a little bit more of a candid listening experience than maybe the book might be. Although I do prefer like being able to annotate and read hard copy books more. But I will say, uh, that side of it was really cool. But why don't we start at the jump? Because I'd say with this David Goggins book, ain't nothing about his life story was easy, right? He kind of it was kind of a wild ride from the beginning, for him as a youth, and that's where kind of the book starts out. Initial thoughts, initial takeaways from some of the first things you were hearing, and then maybe we can move into uh, some of the later stuff.
Yeah, I honestly, I was kind of blown away. You always hear about like certain people's upbringing being kind of hard and rough, but rarely do you hear a story that like vividly puts into perspective just how horrible some of the things someone has gone through and what has kind of caused them to be the person they are today. And he didn't sugarcoat any of it. You know what I mean? Um, that's like I was originally introduced to David Goggins through Jesse Isler's book, Living with the Seal. And that I read that back when we were in Santa Barbara. And the character David Goggins had resonated with me so much. So this book was kind of coming full circle and getting a true introduction into who David Goggins was or is from, him being such a young person and working, in the first grade at his father's skating rink and watching his father like run a prostitution rink and beat his mother senselessly. To them finally being able to get out of that situation and then him failing forward through school, literally. So it was really, really interesting not only to hear about his life, but how he could have easily been one of those people who just was a statistic or checked out. And, in the book, when you were hearing about some of the shit that he was going through, it would have been easy for anybody to you like, you know what, man, I'm just throwing in the towel. This is pretty rough. But he just for him, he was like, yeah, man, listen, there's no excuses. He like took life by the horns, and I fell more in love with like what type of mindset he has and the character of David Goggins. Just from the book, I think one of the things that stood out for me at the beginning was don't be motivated, be driven. That was, I remember hearing that and I was like, damn, that is really, really important. And it really hits home. It really resonated. I love that a lot.
Yeah, man. For those listening, as a reference, as we kind of dive into this conversation, a lot of the themes in the book were, well, for one, the book follows David Goggins from uh, literally his youth all the way into, his completion, basically who he is today. Um, And so one of the things, of a lot of the themes that came up were, race, bullying, moving around a lot, um, being a part, in a lot of ways, a social outcast,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Definitely.
whether it be at home or whether it be, around others. And that was something that for me, I resonated with wildly. And not to say I feel like a social outcast now, but it's more of a byproduct of when I was a kid, and that when he was talking about how, um, you know, I don't know, just that mom son relationship that he always brought in, and how his brother was kind of like his dad's son, and he was kind of his mom's son. Um, that was a part of the story that really spoke out to me, because it was just like that's kind of how I grew up. I was with my mom's, like whatever she kind of needed, whatever she didn't have to worry about, whatever she didn't need to know about, I wouldn't really talk about with her, because it just added more stress to, or more fuel to a fire, whether it be more burdens that she didn't need to know about. But at the same time, her doing the exact same thing in hopes of protecting me in some kind of regard. So that was something that I was like, man, dude, like I feel like this guy's walking me through a more intense version of what my youth emotional state was.
Yeah.
I can't say I experienced anything that he experienced, but emotionally, in the mantras and the feelings that came out from the early parts of that story was something that really I was able to connect with, and I was like, man, dude. So
Mm.
I wasn't alone. You know what I mean? What about you,
Definitely.
Brett?
Right. So one of the things that really stood out to me is how he describes how he felt,
Mm,
when he was failing or when he was growing up or going through certain things. And that really made it real, because he was able to reflect and be like, this is how I felt during this time. And I think that could be really important, because I think a lot of times when people are going through things and they're feeling those feelings, they're content with it. Right. And he talks about how he overcame those things, how he was able to triumph over those things. And it's really powerful because, at least I connected with some of the feelings that he had. It's like,
mm,
wow, back during this time, I felt that kind of way. And that's how I got kind of through it. And I think that can lead into being a driving force for you moving forward, is like,
yeah.
this is how I felt. This is, how I felt during this time. This is how I got over it. And that's going to drive me even farther, even though that's way in the past. That's still going to be a part of my story. That's still part of who I am moving forward. So just the realness of it and how he describes
Mm.
all the situations he was in, all the feelings he had, and how he was able to overcome those was a real sticking point for me. It really made his message powerful, and really taught me a lot.
One of the things he talks about, and themes, right, of all these different things that ultimately could have been excuses, whether it be his
Mhm.
identity, whether it be his household, whether it be his socioeconomic status, all these different things. What were some of the things that were brought to y'all's mind about that, as how he approached it, as like these could have been excuses, but rather it almost fueled my flame, right, and fueled me to get through them. It gave him a sense of power, which a lot of times, you know, it's super easy to fall into. A lot of times it's we can think of it all the time. And I will say this, at my own personal take of my education or background, when it comes to, there are some certain realities you have to come to deal terms with, and I would say this is what worked for Goggins. Now, if you're listening to this, this might work for you, to create this alter ego that he creates in this book, to uh, really kind of have a dark sense of, I wouldn't even call it dark. I'd call it, intense approach to resolving your issues. Um, I guess is something I would say along those lines. And so, uh, but I think there needs to be a place for those kinds of internal conversations with yourself that Goggins outlines for us, of like, uh, make those things kind of feed your flame. He always talked about how he was always the only black student in his classes, how he was, maybe one of the poorer kids in class. He was also in class where he was stumbling, and I mean, academically, they thought he wasn't smart. They thought he was dumb. So all these things compiled up, um, and watching that journey to ultimately where he is today, I think has to give you fire, man. It has to give you fuel to push through and persist. Um, and again, I like that approach of taking what could be a victim experience, what could be an excuse, what could be just a general reality you have to deal with in life that will hinder or provide another barrier for you, and then turning it into just more power, So,
can you give an example of that? Just for the people listening, I would love to, for them to get a better idea of like one of your favorite examples of him taking that, something that would otherwise be looked at as like a hindrance, or like something that was on his shoulders that he could have easily used as an excuse, and he flipped it on himself.
Yeah, man. I mean, from the jump, man, there was a simple one, is that in the one that I've also seen him reference in different podcast interviews, is that he was poor, black, and from the hood. There was the percentage of him being a success was less likely than him to actually achieve the exorbitant amounts of things, especially within the military, that he's achieved thus far. That's one example. I would say even a more personal example for myself would be like, I think for a lot of times my academic journey was something that I looked at as, man, I'm not the most academically inclined, because I thought I was, we talked about this, where I think my goal was sports. That's what it was. But what ultimately gave me fire was being able to prove every teacher I ever had wrong. Like, nah, dude, like I can go, word for word with you on history, language, whatever studies you want to talk about, political dynamics, like whatever you want to do. I'll give you two pieces on my thoughts about it and keep up with you in anything you want to talk about. So that's where I think I would personally, as a small example of certain circumstances, certain life experiences that could have been a excuse. It could have been an excuse that his dad wasn't there in his life. It could have been an excuse that his dad was a pimp, and it could have been an excuse that he was always getting fights, or that he was always getting told he was dumb, or he was getting bullied. All of these things could have been an excuse for him to not be a success. But his approach to it was like, you know what, I'm gonna get hard. Like that's what his language is, right? I'm gonna get hard, and he's gonna be like, you know what, I'm gonna be out here, I'm gonna be after it, and I'm gonna prove everybody wrong. Most importantly, I'm gonna prove myself wrong.
I love that. Like when he really started taking that approach was with the accountability mirror. Like when it was just like that
was a tough one to swallow.
So there was a for the listeners, there's a point in the book where David, where he had kind of reached this threshold where he just couldn't keep up with the lies anymore, right? Where he couldn't lie to himself any further, where he couldn't escape the truth of what was going on, right? He had copied and he cheated his way to the 11th grade, and he had finally gotten to this place where he was super close to cheating his way to graduating, right? And he wanted to get to the military, and the Air Force was his goal. That was the thing that gave him hope, even through his family being poor, even in a city where the Ku Klux Klan openly wore their garb and participated in the in parades, right? And they were very open with it, and everyone treated him as if he was less than, right? And no matter what type of facade he put up, and no matter how much he cheated through, he got to this point, and this in the book where he was in front of the mirror, and he just started being completely honest with himself. He talked about how it took so much, but it was one of the best things that happened to him. It was the one things that saved his life because he was honest with himself about the way he dressed and how it it only spoke to his insecurity. The way he looked and how it really didn't personify who he was and how he wanted to get to the Air Force, but he wasn't even willing to put in the work there. And even his mother, like even though she had gotten a letter saying that he wouldn't graduate if he didn't get his grades up, that what's it called? Even she didn't expect much of him because she was still in survival mode. She was still coming from this place where she had was going through PTSD, getting out of a traumatic relationship with an abusive, alcoholic, drug addicted, and also a womanizer, to losing somebody that she cared, another person, another man, to murder, and then trying to raise a son at the same time and having no job experience, right? And he was trying to raise himself, and the only way he found the ability to do so was stepping in front of this mirror and being completely and 100% honest with himself. For people who are listening, he called this his accountability mirror. And one of the ways he did this, he created sticky notes. He put it on the mirror of things that he would do to make sure he was accountable with himself. You know, to make sure that, hey, if my school says that they're going to give me a year to get my shit together and to learn what I need to learn to graduate on time with my class, and then I can then go after my goal of going into the Air Force, I need to make sure I'm abiding by certain things. You know what I mean? I think that for me was one of the biggest things that stood out in that part of his life. And it really spoke to me on just how important it was, both that him being completely brutally honest with himself and holding himself accountable was what really pushed him to that next level. Because you saw a massive shift in his frame, his like the way he approached school, just even his outward appearance. Everything changed when he really started to be accountable with himself, and how he didn't allow himself to use any excuse, even though the world looked at him and gave him every excuse. He wouldn't even give himself that, and I think that part really stuck with me a lot.
Yeah, and one thing to kind of piggyback off you, Dev, that really stuck out to me is that he was making such a drastic change, right? And that could be kind of scary, you know, and he really understood that he had to make a change in his life. And he understood that it wasn't going to happen overnight. You know, that he was going to have to try to be his best self every single day. And that, you know, that you got to look at the long picture. It's not just going to be tomorrow, but you take each day as it comes and you strive to be the person that you want to be. So that's one thing that really stuck out with me, because I think a lot of times, you know, we think that we make one little change one day that it's going to change our whole outlook, you know, and obviously his story, he made a massive change. You know, he was totally flipping the script of what he was. And really he kind of breaks it down and says, you got to take it day by day and be your best self every single day. Be the person that you want to be every single day. So kind of piggyback off you. That's kind of what I took away from that.
Yeah, man. But let's dive even deeper, right? It's being your best self every day, but beyond that, he brings this to the front of like, yo, you need to get wildly obsessed. Like you need to like, and this is we've talked about. This is the motivation that I love. Like when I read about this gets me like, let's go. Like I'm ready to run through a brick wall for this dude after reading this book.
Yeah.
Like it's like I'm ready to go down to a dark place, talk to nobody, be on my grind, and stay locked in 24 hours of the day. Let's make it 26. Give me an extra 2 if I have it. You know what I mean? Right? Like, and I love it because it you see such a stark change in him in the book, bro. Like by the end of the book, you don't think it's even the same person. You're like, what are you talking about? Like, so like, and I guess an example would be, and let me pull it back here, is that one of the things he talked about was how everyone around him, because he was one of the only black kids in school, because he was, not the smartest kid, because he fit these stereotypes for them. There was a distinct part in the book where he talks about, like, I just became the self-fulfilling prophecy with that, man. I wore those baggy clothes. I looked mean. I talked to you crazy. Like like he was fulfilling the stereotypes that these people around him that didn't care about him, but he wanted their approval, were painting a picture about him. And then by the end of it, you know what I'm saying? Like, where the shift is where the mindset comes in, where, no, dude, I don't want to be like anybody else. I don't want to be like one of his most famous quotes is like, I want to be uncommon amongst uncommon people.
Boom.
Right? Like that's what it is, man. That's what it is, man. He said, I want to be uncommon amongst uncommon people. You know what I'm saying? so I'm telling y'all, man, like when I hear this, dude, I continue to parallel my own lived experience with it as much as I can. Man, dude's wild. Great example of like all these different things, but it's crazy because how humble he is about it. How he don't be on social media like that. He'll show up for interviews, but you really don't know what this man's up to all the time and how much he's compartmentalizing a lot of stuff. And maybe I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it sounds like he knows his story. It sounds like he knows where he come from. It's rooted in how he moves and operates. It sounds like he's not trying to fit in to that stereotype. He's not still trying to wear those, big baggy clothes and talk wild to people because that was the stereotype they had of him. Rather, he's far exceeding everyone and maybe his own expectations of where he started. And even then, I don't think he'd be settled.
Oh, not at all.
So,
bro, what'd you think, bro?
Man, that Jake just talking right there just kind of made me think of a quote where it's like, if you're not pissed off to be great, then you're okay with being mediocre, right? If you're not really driven to be great, then you're okay with just being common, like Jake said. Like, you're not going to be uncommon if you're not pissed off to be great. And so, because excuses come a dime a dozen, wins and losses come a dime a dozen, but it's all about your effort, and like, because the people around you don't know how much effort you're giving. And he kind of talks about that in the book, the 40% rule, to where people are only really giving 40% of their effort. They really only tap into that. And until you can figure out how to unlock that 60%, or at least some of it, or at least be able to build on it, then you're just going to be one of those common people who can only give 40%. So, that Jake just saying that, it kind of made me think of that quote and that part of the book, that 40% rule.
What are our thoughts? So on that 40%, man, let's dive into that. Where are we only giving 40%? Where is it that damn well you have more in the tank? There's a little vulnerability right now, but you know damn well you have more in the tank. And part of me is here. I will give a general basic example. This is a go-to one and a very easy one for everyone to relate to. Working out, okay, and that's the one Goggins always goes to. Running, bro. The guy, what was it? What was the one he ran like 100 miles? What was that called?
So the 100-mile marathon. This man showed up. For the people who don't know, this man showed up to a 100-mile marathon that people normally run in teams to qualify for bigger marathons. He ran it, showed up to the goddamn marathon with a lawn chair, a thing of crackers, and a bottle of water. All right, there are people who show up for teams for this thing. They're like, oh my god. I won't get into too much of the details, but yeah, this guy crazy ends up literally. I think he finished the race, but he was pissing blood by the end of it. He had shit literally coming out all the way down his leg. He had broken every bone in his foot, both of his feet. And yeah, he almost had to go to the hospital directly after. I'm pretty sure he did have to go to the hospital directly after. But the guy finished the race. He crushed it, got 100 miles in 24 hours, and he didn't even prep for the motherfucking race, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the mindset of David Goggins.
Dude, that man's man. So, but let's dive into it, man. What is something? And so the example I was going to share was the 40%, right? Working out. I can spend 2 to 3 hours in the gym if given the opportunity.
I would love that.
I love it. That's where I go. That's my happy place. Don't talk to me in the gym. Don't do anything to me. I just like to lift weights in the gym by myself. That's awesome. What I don't do, and what I know I'm not doing, is a complete workout. I can go in there and lift weights for a very long time. But if you want me to get on that treadmill and you want me to do cardio, I know I don't do that. But I will tell you this. Here's what I'll tell you, though, is that this man over here motivated the hell out of me in this book. And I was up in my morning workouts, and I went into the gym 2 times already this week. What is it? Today's Tuesday.
Today's
Tuesday, yeah, 2 times. So it's only been 2 days of the week. So, blurring days here. I've only been in the gym 2 times of the week, right? And I didn't pick up a single weight. I was like, man, dude, this guy is calling me out right now, and I'm just like, and all I did was run cardio, like, and I ran a total of, combined between the 2 days, 8 miles, which is more than I ever do. Now, I will tell you, it probably took me about the same 2 hours of the gym I spend to get those 8 miles, but you know, this man over here was
not
like,
gonna be overnight, Jake.
yeah, it ain't overnight, man. So that was something that this book has actively contributed to a change in my lifestyle. I was like, okay, man, you know what? Maybe you don't need to be lifting all this weight. Let's push the boundaries a little bit. Let's know that like 40% is lifting weights. Maybe 50% is running. I still think there's a whole another 50% I can untap into. Maybe it's jiu-jitsu. Maybe it's a whole another athletic sport. Maybe it's something else to test my body to its craziest limits. But that's the athletic side. That's the athletic example. But for y'all, man, like, you know, whether it be athletics too, is there a space where you're just like, man, this is kind of where it's getting 40% for me right now. You know, like this is that I can do more, or that I want to do more, and then I see a road to how that can be done. But I keep coming up with maybe internal excuses. Maybe not a direct example to you, but something that you see, you know, along that line.
I mean, I would say on the other side of that is eating. You know, my lifestyle. You know, eating a balanced diet. You know, getting my vitamins, getting my water, getting my sleep. So really just like the lifestyle part of it, I feel like I've been kind of lacking on because I think it's really easy. You know, I work in a building on a university that has food upstairs. You know, it's really easy to go grab a sandwich real quick, grab a breakfast sandwich from Starbucks. But really kind of the lifestyle side of it, I think kind of at 40% right now.
I would say there's 2 things, and I'll say this out loud. I'm going to be vulnerable and say it on this recorded line here.
Man, don't share nothing if you don't want to share nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, no. I was going to say this, bro. I was going to say I really think that, like, when I look at, like, how well we do this podcast, I love it, but I feel like we can do more.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, all right. Now we're diving into some stuff.
All right.
Yeah. All right.
We're gonna do this. We're gonna do it.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel like the people who listen to this, I feel like they deserve more. I feel like they deserve 150%. And I feel like if I'm being honest, I feel like we give 40 to 50%. And it's not that we don't want to, but it's just that we allow the rest of the world to move us, and us telling the rest of the world where to move. You know what I mean?
Ooh, okay.
And the second one for me would be I'm giving 40% on relationships, and I'm saying that because I think that I could give more to the relationships with the people that I have instead of looking at what I may be missing, appreciating what I have and building on it. You know what I mean? Those relationships with the people that I love and that I care for, I find, you know, it they can be better, and they deserve to be better.
Mm. Yeah, man. You know what? He said something in the book. Well, actually, it was in the commentary after the chapter, but and I pulled it up here in reference to this because you made me think about it. But he says people can multitask big time, which to me makes you half-assed at a lot of shit. I have a hyper focus on whatever is in front of me. Some of us are too busy to multitask. We don't do shit.
Say it one more time. Listeners can hear that again, bro. I want to hear it again.
He said people can multitask big time, which to me makes you half-assed at a lot of shit. I have to be hyper focused on whatever is in front of me. Some of us are so busy multitasking we don't do shit.
Woo. Yo, that's so on point, bro.
And I will say this though. I will say this, man. With this podcast stuff, we all got jobs, right? We all got other stuff.
Facts.
It is hard to be hyper focused on stuff like this. It is hard to be hyper focused on anything outside of, our other everything that we have in our lives, whether it be work, whether it be a second job, a personal hobby, venture, whatever it is, family, girlfriend, wife, parents, children. I don't think any of us have children, right, Devin?
Hey. I'm not living a life of badness anyway. Whatever.
But no, again, I'm just jabbing here, but I say this because, sometimes we have to be these multitaskers, but I agree, man. If I can be hyper focused on one thing, shoot.
I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna play devil's advocate with you.
Let's do it.
If somebody was on the other end, if let's say that we knew, if let's say we had insight, and let's say by episode 38 we knew that we'd be getting paid $1 million an episode, would we be operating at the same level we are right now? If the answer is yes, then sure, great. But if we could produce more, if we knew we could push further, and we knew that was coming by episode 38, how hard would we push to get to episode motherfucking 38, right? And if the answer is more than what we're doing right now, then that means that it has to be that there has to be some type of external motivation when in fact we're doing this for ourselves and the people who are listening. And so that we need to be able to push further because we know that we are capable of so much more. Because if we can think about it in that context, we know we can do more.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like internal motivation is much stronger than external motivation. If we understand that we want to blow, like Dev, like you just said, we want to blow this up, or we want this to be our vision of it. I wouldn't even go to say that we want to make all this money or reach X amount of people, but I would go to say like it has to be to our standards, our vision of it, because if it's not that, then what are we doing? If it's not up to our standards, then what are we doing?
So there's a really good quote that I always reference when I think I could do more. It goes like this. It says, if it's So if it's not broke, if it's not broken, then don't fix it. But if it could be better, then is it as good as broken? I'm gonna say it one more time.
Yeah.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if it could be better, does that make it as good as broken? And I mean, when I'm thinking about it, man, like everything that I'm doing, am I doing it great? Sure. But if I could do it better, does that mean that me doing it great or me doing it okay? Does that mean I'm going to settle for mediocrity? Does that mean that I'm willing to not go 150% when I know in my soul that I could give more? And for the people who are listening, I want you to think about it like this. Have you ever done something? Have you ever cleaned the house and there's a part of the house, maybe a corner that you didn't go to sweep in, or a part of the bathroom you didn't fully clean and you maybe did, 90% of cleaning. And there's that 10% if you would have checked the box, if you would have done, you would feel that sense of social that equity in your own heart, that you know what, I've made, I went 100%, I went 150%. But when you're cleaning, something as simple as cleaning your room, if there's one thing left that you didn't touch, that you didn't do, it's going to sit in your mind. And so anytime you make a statement like, oh, I cleaned up, you're going to lose confidence in yourself, because you know what? You know you could have done more. Good could have been great. And because of that, it's as good as broke.
I think there's one thing to be said about you can always improve. I think that in anything you do, you can always do something a little better. And I think it's super important to look back and analyze that, and not be overly critical, not nitpick, but like hey, I understand, this wasn't the best, or this wasn't up to my standard, or this wasn't what I envisioned. And then be able to formulate a plan on that. Because I think with a lot of times you understand that maybe you didn't give 100% or something didn't go right, but you don't really think about how to fix it. Like, you just like, oh, okay, that didn't go well, whatever. Like, everything's okay. Like, I don't need to reanalyze on what I can do to fix that. And so I think that is super important to do in anything you do, is to look back, analyze on what could be done better, and then formulate and have a plan so that doesn't happen again, or that next time it is better. I just think that's vital with anything you do in any facet of your life.
Right, you bring up a great theme in the book as well, and it's like really learning and accepting where you came from, what your flaws were, what didn't go right the first time, and learning from it. That's the whole point, right? Isn't that the whole point of history? Is so that we don't repeat the mistakes that we continue to do. I was just in a conversation with somebody today, and I was just like, they were almost like, why is everyone so concerned with the past? Why, like, just keep moving forward. Like, stop concerning yourself with the past. And I was sitting there, I was like, no, we engage with the past so that if we fucked up, we don't do it again. And we engage with the past so that if we do something right, we push it forward. We pass it forward. We continue to do that. And that was a theme in the book. And I want to bring up this quote that he talks here, in that, he says, anyone in their sound mind and body can sit down and think of 20 things in their life that could have gone differently, where maybe they didn't get a fair shake, and where they took the path of least resistance. He says, only when you identify and accept your weaknesses will you finally stop running from your past. Then those incidents can be used more efficiently as fuel to become better and grow stronger.
Say that again, bro. I think the people listening really should hear that.
He says, anyone who is in sound mind and body can sit down and think of 20 things in their life that could have gone differently, where maybe they didn't get a fair shake, and where they took the path of least resistance. Only when you identify and accept your weaknesses will you finally stop running from your past. Then those incidents can be used more efficiently as fuel to become better and stronger. So this is where he talks about, right? This is where he talks about this fuel, right? This is where he talks about turning all the shit that's happened in our lives, all the stuff that we've gone through personally, that, instead of making it an excuse, or instead of potentially, it being a byproduct of your current circumstance, allow it to mentally, fuel you to be somewhere else. To be like, I am so sick of this current situation that you're going to have to chain me down to make sure that I don't get out of it, right? You're going to have to chain me down to the point where you have to stop me from moving, because I'm going to make sure I get the fuck out of this situation. Right. And so that's one of the things, Brett, I appreciate you bringing up that point of just like the past. Let's learn from it so we don't perpetuate the things that we don't want to persist in our lives.
Don't dread on it, but learn from it. Don't be stuck in the past. Yeah. That's not what I'm saying, is don't, understand the past and let it lead you forward, but don't be stuck in the past, because that's not good either.
he has another quote here too. Is that it's to be peaceful but never satisfied. I know some buddies from our high school that had a similar wrestling motto. Don't remember what it is, but it has that kind of concept of like, peaceful, but never satisfied. And so I think that touches on that. And maybe this is a question too. Do we ever get to a point where it's done? Do we ever get to the point where we need to stop challenging ourselves every day? And I think I would argue, based on what Goggins has shared with us, no. But is there ever a point where it looks different, or that it changes, or that we do it a little different, or is it everyday kind of thing?
I think that your goals and aspirations can change, so maybe it looks a little different. But I would say no, the drive to be better should never go away. But your situation may change. Where you're wanting to go may change. Yeah. What you want may change. But I think what he's saying is the drive should never go away. You should always be peaceful, but be hungry. Be moving forward no matter where you're going. It is what I take away from that.
Yeah,
I agree. I'm in the same mindset. Always like kind of accepting whatever is like happening around you, or accepting where you've either the progress you made or how you've regressed in that current place, wherever you are, understanding where you are, and then identifying where you want to go, and just kind of moving forward. I think that the greatest versions of ourselves never settled for mediocrity, right? They never settled for, it's just, I think this is far enough. The best versions of ourselves that we're working toward, they wouldn't settle for where we're at right now. So why should we? You know what I mean? There's Kobe had a quote that resonated with me, right? Shout out to Kobe, Mamba mentality, man, live forever. He said, he had a quote that he learned from one of his coaches, and it said, he said, rest at the end, not in the middle, right? Rest when it's done. When the task is done, then we can rest, not in the middle. And that really resonated with me.
Man, I think we're coming in on I think it's I don't know. This was an exciting episode for me, man. I feel like
it's almost like we could keep going. We
can keep going, dude. I feel like we can keep going for a couple hours, bro.
I know, man. This is good. This is good.
Yeah, dude. I was like, I appreciate it because it was a very grounding episode, man. But let's get this episode out, and then we got some stuff to hit the drawing board with, and I want to do a quick, final takeaways from this book. Again, this is David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me. We know we didn't cover the whole book. We took pieces and takes from it. Go get it, pick it up, listen to it. It's on Audible. It's a phenomenal book. I honestly suggest the Audible because you get the live takes or the after takes of each chapter. But let's do some big takeaways or final takeaways that we got from this episode, and then let's go hit the drawing board, Devin, because that was good, man. That was good. And then yeah, man. What are some final takeaways y'all got, man?
My final takeaway is that your best version of yourself is in 5 years, and in 5 years, the best version of yourself will be in 5 years. That you should always be going forward, that you should always be moving forward, and that you should always be just driven to be better every single day. And that will lead you to where you want to go.
My final takeaway is it kind of piggybacks off what Brett just said, and it also wraps in exactly what I mentioned at the very beginning. Don't be motivated to be driven. Be focused. Mm-hmm. Don't allow yourself to just put in 40%, say that that's good, and call it a day. Strive for that greatness. Strive for more. That's the takeaway. One of the takeaways I have from this book, at least from the beginning sections, And for the people listening, we gave you we didn't even really give you 40% of the book. So go check it.
Yeah, that's gonna be on you to get that full 100. So I would say my final takeaway, y'all, is two-pronged. One of them being surround yourself with people who are hungry, people who man, I wouldn't have chosen y'all if y'all weren't hungry after some part of your lifestyle, and that's why I wanted you guys to be on here with me to not only fuel my flame, but know that I'm not the best at whatever I do, knowing that there's other lions in the room. You know what I'm saying? And being able to learn from that. And then I'd say another one is just really owning your story.
Mm-hmm.
Extreme ownership over your story. And being able to share it with people in a way that ideally moves, connects, and grows others. That's something I want. Because the way the way he was able to tell his story, man, and it's his story. You can't make this up. There's nothing about it that you can fake, and I think that's what is so moving. That's why you saw us sitting up in our chairs more when we were talking about this topic. That's why you saw, the passion behind some of the things we were engaging in here. Candid with y'all, who records an episode and talks about how we want to grow the podcast we're recording? that doesn't make sense. Now I'm like, yo, we give him 40%, dog. What are we doing?
What the fuck is that?
Yeah, man. And so that's why I'm like, okay, you know what? You're right, man.
And the drum boards. You inspired me, Dev.
Yeah, man. So this is again.
What was the quote that you said earlier, Jake?
That
he loves. I want to be uncommon amongst uncommon men.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Let's take that to heart, and hope the viewers listen to this and take that to heart. Continue pushing at it. Continue striving. Don't settle. And improvements each day. Dive into that dark place and come out into that bright one, right?
Own the darkness, man. Own it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Part of the journey. It's part of the journey.
All right, y'all. That's another episode from us. Humble Hustle Project out. Deuces.
Yo.
Peace out.